Greetings, YouTube, and welcome to episode number 11 of the 4,000 word challenge I have presented myself with. So, here we go. What serious illness or accidents did you have as a child? They asked this question earlier, but I had pneumonia when I was like 3. I've been mauled by a dog. I had one which is actually it's not an illness or an accident, but it did cause us a scare. I realized that my rib cage was not properly shaped. It isn't. My rib cage is actually skewed. It's like you take your rib cage and kind of warp it like that. My breastbone is about 2 inches off center. But I realized this at one point as a child, so there had to be all kinds of X-rays and scans and crap, and probably just X-rays actually back then. A bunch of doctors and things talked about it, and apparently realized that it's just a natural deformity of my rib cage. But it did cause us a bit of a scare at one point. What stories have you been told about yourself as a baby? The one story that pops into my head, my mother had put me into the crib and she had put a blanket over the railing of the crib so you couldn't see into the crib. I think her reasoning was to keep drafts out of the crib. And in retrospect, probably not the smartest thing to do because I could have potentially pulled that blanket off and smothered myself. But, that's beside the point. But as walking past the room, she thought she heard a squirrel in the room with me because we had squirrels that would occasionally get into the walls of our building. It was a double stone wall, a very old building. It was had been a big house that had been converted into apartments. And the walls were double thick. Like I think the outside was stone and the inside was like brick or something. I'm not sure in this section, but there was a gap in space inside that wall, which was quite large enough for a squirrel to get into. So occasionally, I guess they would because of the weather. And she was afraid that there was a squirrel in the cage inside the crib with me, and she didn't come into the room and confront the squirrel on her own. She walked past the room, called my father, who, of course, did not have his car that day because it was in the shop. So he had to run like 21 blocks from wherever the heck he was at work to home to discover me in the crib sucking my thumb. There was no squirrel. Now, if you thought a squirrel was actually eating your baby, maybe you go check on that. Just saying. Okay, what were your favorite, and this now we have a list of a bunch of things. Oh, this is like, well, okay, on a second. Yeah, this is like 16 questions all crammed into one little section. So I'm going to have to remember that. All right, so we're going to do the left column today. We'll do the right column next video. Okay, what were your favorite books? As a kid, I was a big fan of science fiction and fantasy. And again, one of the books that pops into my head the most readily is the Jargoon Pard, Starman's Son, 2001: Space Odyssey. Yeah. What were your favorite foods? My favorite foods were probably the foods I had when I would go see my grandparents, which would be in Pennsylvania, and I would have access to something called, it would be a dried ring bologna, sort of like a dried version of kielbasa. I love that stuff. It was very heavily garliced. I would love to have some more, get my hands some more of that. They would have a particular kind of donut. It was a cruller. It was known as a Long John, and it was a cruller covered with a shredded hard topping, like a cream topping, like a block of something was just kind of shaved over it. Most beautiful donut in the whole universe. Oddly green grapes on top of vanilla ice cream. Pretty much any foods that my father's mother served me. My mother's mother was a horrible cook. What were your favorite games? I started an interest in role-playing games at age 14. Prior to that, it would probably be just board games of some variety or another. what mentors slash role models, my favorite mentors slash role models, there actually were a few people in my life that I thought were pretty darn cool and helped keep me sane. Um, Other than that, I thought Elvis was cool. At one time, I thought Eisenhower was kind of cool. Um, in retrospect, Eisenhower wasn't a bad human being. He was the last decent Republican president as well. My favorite hiding places, right here. Um, what were my favorite classes? Again, I was an abysmal student, but I did enjoy creative writing. That was kind of nice. And we had a mythology course in high school, and apparently, I think I'm gonna sneeze. Sorry, I think I'm gonna sneeze, and I did. What were my favorite summer vacations? Again, seeing my grandparents in Pennsylvania, and the one trip we took to Florida, which was intriguing and interesting, if more than just a smidge stressful. Sorry, I never sneeze in singles. That's a fun fact for you. That's an extra. I always sneeze in twos and threes. What were my favorite words? As a child, I did not have my fascination with the language I have now, and my favorite word now is flange. What were your favorite TV shows? Star Trek, $6 Million Man, Bionic Woman, Lost in Space, things like that. What were your favorite bedtime stories or lullabies? I don't have a memory of any of them, so I couldn't tell you. So that has been the episode 11, and I'm going to have to remember to go back and do the other half of this list, which is on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7, it's 8 on the left and 7 on the right. Oh, that makes my life even less pleasant. Oh, it's going to be a pain to remember. All right. So, so that's been episode 11. I hope that you've been enjoying yourself, and I'm having to work my way around the fact that this book is a little more haphazardly laid out than I thought it was.